Maximilien Robespierre was the kind of man who believed he could purify a nation the way a surgeon removes diseased flesh, by cutting deeply, coldly, and without flinching. A small, shy lawyer from a provincial town who rose not through charisma or violence, but through an unwavering belief that he alone understood the moral geometry of the universe. A man whose smile always looked like an apology, and whose words always sounded like a verdict. The incorruptible who marched into history convinced that virtue could save France, even if France had to be dragged to the guillotine screaming. Born in 1758 in Arras, a boy with delicate health, an absent mother, and a father who vanished from his life like a ghost slipping through a courthouse door, Maximilien grew up surrounded by books, rules, and loneliness. He studied law not because he loved power, but because he feared injustice. He admired Rousseau with absolute devotion, absorbing doctrines of virtue, equality, and civic religion with the zeal of a student searching for a father figure he never had. He was brilliant, disciplined, painfully earnest, the kind of young man who quoted philosophy at dinner parties and left early, unnoticed. But revolutions do not choose leaders for charm. They choose them for the ability to stand perfectly still when everyone else is losing their minds. When the Estates General convened in 1789, Robespierre arrived as an unknown deputy dressed like a school teacher. He spoke quietly but with precision, demanding universal suffrage, abolition of privileges, equal rights for all. Others treated revolution as sport. Robespierre treated it as scripture. Soon he rose within the Jacobin club, not by shouting, but by judging. In debates, he listened with an expression of mild disappointment, as if everyone else were morally unprepared for the new France, and the public adored him for it. A politician who refused bribes, a deputy who rejected luxury, a lawyer who would rather break than bend. In a corrupt age, this wasn't virtue. This was sorcery. They called him the Incorruptible, a title he embraced like armor. But underneath his moral rigidity lived something dangerous, a growing belief that compromise was treason, moderation was betrayal, and opponents were not adversaries but criminals against the people. As France spiraled into chaos, food shortages, riots, foreign invasions, royal indecision, Robespierre's star rose. He opposed war with a prophetic calm, predicting, correctly, that war would radicalize the revolution, empower generals, and unleash internal terror. When the king attempted to flee, Robespierre demanded accountability. When the king returned, he demanded trial. When the king was tried, he demanded death. His argument was mathematical. Louis must die so the nation may live. No passion, no hatred, just cold logic. This was the first sign of the terrifying calculus that would soon govern his mind. If the survival of the Republic required sacrifice, then sacrifice would be made by others. But Robespierre was not yet a tyrant. He was a moralist, standing on the edge of an abyss he could not yet see. The revolution devoured factions like a furnace consuming fuel. Monarchists, constitutionalists, moderates, radicals, all rose and fell within months. Robespierre survived because he was predictable, rigid, cautious, incorruptible. He seemed safe, he seemed principled, he seemed incapable of tyranny because tyranny, people assumed, required appetite. But Robespierre's appetite was not for pleasure, it was for purity, and purity is a far more dangerous hunger. In 1793, he joined the Committee of Public Safety, the executive brain of the Republic. 12 men, one nation, unlimited emergency powers. It was supposed to save France from invasion and collapse. Instead, it became the steel chamber where reason suffocated under fear. Robespierre, once hesitant, now embraced necessity with icy resolve. His speeches became sharper, more absolute, slicing through political opponents with moral fury. And then came the day he uttered the line that would define him forever. Terror is nothing other than justice, prompt, severe, inflexible. And from that moment, terror was not a policy, it was doctrine. Streets filled with informants. The revolutionary tribunal worked without sleep. Accusations became evidence. Suspicion became guilt. Death sentences arrived faster than appeals could be written. And through it all, Robespierre worked with the devotion of a monk, copying sacred texts. He avoided excess, avoided sin, avoided wealth, avoided indulgence. While others drowned in greed or madness, he lived simply, ascetically, almost robotically. He believed that if he stayed pure, France could be purified through him. That belief, more than cruelty, made him terrifying, because cruelty is human. Fanatic virtue is something else. Danton, once his friend, became too loud, too pragmatic, too willing to halt the executions. Robespierre had him arrested and executed, justifying the killing with sorrowful disappointment, like a schoolmaster reprimanding a wayward student. Hébert and his extremists demanded more blood, so Robespierre crushed them too, sending them to the same fate. Anyone who threatened the moral or political direction he envisioned was removed. At times he seemed almost reluctant, but he never hesitated. When the blade fell, Robespierre looked away, but he ordered it all the same. But the human mind cannot survive on purity alone. Isolated, overworked, sleepless, his personality began to fracture. Friends worried about his insomnia. He ate little, spoke often to himself, avoided social contact, lived increasingly in a world where he alone could hear the voice of virtue. And then he made his greatest mistake. He decided to replace Christianity with a new civic religion, the cult of the supreme being. He believed that France needed a moral framework. He believed people needed virtue. He believed he was the one to guide them. But to everyone else, the festival of the supreme being, with Robespierre descending a man-made mountain in sky-blue robes like a prophet receiving applause, looked like madness. Even his allies whispered, "He thinks he is God." The terror intensified. The law of 22 Prairial reduced trials to rubber-stamp executions. A citizen could be condemned on the basis of moral certainty, a term so vague it might as well have been written by a paranoid ghost. The guillotine never rested. Robespierre's speeches grew more threatening, more paranoid, more abstract. He spoke of hidden enemies, of conspirators everywhere, of traitors inside the convention. Everyone was guilty. Everyone was suspect. Everyone was disposable. And then came July 26, 1794, the speech that ended him. Robespierre stood before the convention, pale, trembling from exhaustion, voice rising with moral fever, declaring that traitors sat among them, but refusing to name them. It was political suicide. He threatened everyone at once. The next day, the convention turned on him. Deputies shouted him down. He tried to speak, but the whole roared, "Down with the tyrant." The incorruptible, for the first time, looked helpless. He fled with loyalists to the Hôtel de Ville, but Paris no longer trembled at his name. The convention ordered his arrest. Forces loyal to the Republic stormed the building. In the chaos, Robespierre attempted suicide, or was shot, the bullet shattering his jaw, leaving him unable to speak, the final irony for a man who ruled through words. The next day, jaw splintered, face pale, eyes burning with shock and disbelief, he was dragged to the guillotine. When executioners tore the bandage from his shattered jaw, he screamed, not in pain, but in outrage. The crowd cheered as the blade fell, not because justice had been done, because fear had ended. But the tragedy of Robespierre is deeper than terror. He was not a sadist. He was not corrupt. He was not greedy. He did not seek power for pleasure. He sought purity. He sought virtue. And in the pursuit of virtue without mercy, he committed crimes no villain could justify and no tyrant could rival. That is what makes him terrifying. He became a monster not by abandoning his ideals, but by obeying them more faithfully than any human should. His life is the final warning of the French Revolution, that the line between justice and fanaticism is a thread, and once it snaps, even the purest intentions fall into darkness. Robespierre believed he was saving France. In the end, he saved no one, not even himself. And yet long after his death, his shadow remains a reminder that the worst horrors of history are often committed not by evil men, but by good men who have forgotten how to doubt.